So far in June, Heliot Ramos is batting .387 with 7 home runs and a .1232 OPS. He might just be a stud. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, June 18th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Today on the show, who's hot and who's not? We have 3 hitters picking things back up. The Mets are streaking, in a good way, of course, and much more. Let's jump in.
Adios, pelota!
All right, Scott, you heard the numbers up top. Someone we've talked a lot about recently is Heliot Ramos. 2 for 5 with his 9th home run, and he has gone nuclear in June. I read off the numbers. It's a OPS up over 1,200 so far in the month, and overall, he's hitting .328. He's got the 9 homers, 31 RBI in 36 games played. The strikeouts a little bit high, as we pointed out many times. It's a 29% strikeout rate, but man, he is hitting the ball hard. He is barreling it up. The expected numbers look really good for Heliot Ramos. Not much too actionable because he's up to 89% rostered, and I believe 74% on Yahoo. So if you play on Yahoo, he might be out there. But the question to you, what if Heliot Ramos is a stud? What do you think?
I mean, I remember him getting some prospect hype when he was still a teenager, way down in the Giants system, and there were his prospect stock kind of went up and down, and obviously his first couple chances in the majors didn't go very well, but he seems to have found his footing now. That strikeout rate is a little concerning still. Anytime you're above 25%, verging on 30%, that's scary, but his average exit velocity, Heliot Ramos, is around 93 miles per hour. It's basically Yordan Alvarez. It's basically Marcell Ozuna. That's how hard he's hitting the ball on average, which, doesn't necessarily mean that's how hard he'll continue to hit the ball on average. But it's not fake what he's done so far. I think that's the fairest way to put it. And there's enough of a pedigree that it wouldn't shock me if Heliot Ramos remains just like a staple in the outfield for fantasy rest of season. It's been such a bad position after all. I guess the actionable question here, do you sell high on Heliot Ramos given the dearth of outfielders who are performing up to our standards in fantasy? I don't even know exactly what that would look like. It would have to be for another hitter, I think, in most cases, since again the balance of power is shifted so much toward pitching right now. But it's worth exploring. It's worth exploring. Little Heliot Ramos and change for one of those stud hitters who's still underperforming. I don't know. Ozzie Albies just hit a long home run tonight, so I don't know if the timing's there for him. I mean, the numbers are still lagging, obviously, but something like that. If you can get a more trustworthy hitter, trustworthy given like long-term context, I think it's worth exploring.
Yeah, I do think there's a bit of a sell high opportunity here based on that strikeout rate, but man, the batted ball data does look really good. We just don't have a long track record, as you mentioned, of Heliot Ramos performing like a stud. 2 other outfielders who, not that Cody Bellinger's been awful, but I don't think that he's really lived up to expectations so far. And Randy Arozarena. If you can do Ramos and a, lesser piece for either of those, would you try it?
I don't know. I don't know that I would. I've been a Randy Arozarena downer for a while now, so I'm buying into his dreadful start to the season a little more than for some of the other stud hitters, which maybe is just totally confirmation bias. But there's a reason why I was concerned about Randy Arozarena coming into the season. If you look at his numbers just the last 365 days, awful numbers. Not just the first 2 months, but the last full calendar year, like I said. And then Bellinger, obviously, there was a lot of skepticism surrounding his 2023 performance as well. It certainly could have. I think people were fearing much worse from Bellinger than it's been so far. But Yeah, I would say if somebody offered me Bellinger straight up for Ramos, I'd probably have to take it. A Rosarena in a shallow league, I don't think I'd do it. I don't think if somebody offered me a Rosarena straight up for Ramos, I think I'd want. For shallow leagues, I don't feel like the upside is high enough for a Rosarena to make it worth the while. And I guess I'm thinking mostly points leagues, 3 outfielder leagues. That's what I mean by shallow leagues. And the reason I'm making that shallow league distinction is because in deeper leagues, you have to be more careful. Like if there's an upside player out there with the potential to have just the bottom drop out on him, then that's much riskier to take on in a deeper league when you can't pivot to something else if and when that bottom does drop out. So that's the thinking there. Yeah. I would say that's a tough call with a Rosarena.
Mm-hmm. All right. So again,
how do you feel though, Frank? You're allowed to have feelings too. Do I sound crazy?
No, I mean, as you mentioned, it's a full year now where Randy Rosarena's probably batting right around 200 or even below it. So he's still providing some power and speed. And I know the batting average has been better. I think in June he's hitting around 280, something like that. So it's just been, the vibes are off for Tampa Bay. It's been a weird season for them. And I think it's kind of bled into, like, obviously Randy Rosarena struggling has been a big part of that. So no, I don't think it's crazy. I think, when I do ranking updates later this week, Heliot Ramos is probably moving inside my top 40 outfielders, and Randy Rosarena, I already have him down around 20th. He probably deserves to move down a little bit lower. So, I mean, the difference between them, they're getting pretty close in the outfield rankings. I don't think it's crazy for you to have that.
And when I do my rankings, I'll probably still have a Rosarena ahead, but that's because I have to be more careful with the rankings, I feel like, than with the team that only I have to answer for,
Yeah.
So there's that. Okay, so numbers last 365 days for a Rosarena, 207 batting average, 19 home runs, 20 steals. So those haven't disappeared, but.
And we were basically expecting, 2020. It's just probably with a 250 batting average instead of 200, So that's a big problem for Randy Rosarena. So I think you're totally validated in having that opinion. Again, with Heliot Ramos, if you can sell high, you can look into it. It's not something you absolutely have to do. I would say ride this for as long as it's going. He has some prospect pedigree and obviously looks pretty awesome so far in June. Scott, over to you. Player of the night.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Reese Olson for the second consecutive start because it was good again. And so if you gambled on him in the 2-start week, you can breathe a sigh of relief. He made it past the resurgent Braves lineup, which didn't score a single run off Reese Olson. 6 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts, 0 walks. That was after back-to-back starts where Reese Olson allowed double-digit hits. I will point out, from the context of the Braves lineup, Austin Riley still had 2 doubles in this game. Both hit over 100 miles per hour. Ozzie Albies, like I said, hit a long home run in this game. So there are still some good signs for the Braves offense, but Reese Olson seemed to be just looked like he had it again. And he said that he fixed something in the lower half of his delivery, and also he was more careful with his misses. He felt like he was missing too much over the plate and wanted to miss off the plate if he missed. And so that was a focus of his in this start, and it seemed to work. Like I said last time, the effectiveness of Reese Olson's changeup and slider still give me a lot of hope long term. But as bad as his last 2 starts were, the fact he had only won 1 game all season, it was. I could understand losing faith in him, and it just so happened he lined up for 2 starts, 1 against the White Sox. So then he ended up in my sleeper pitchers for this week. They're not very high on the list. It looks like it's going to pay off, provided he doesn't backslide against the White Sox next time out.
Mm-hmm. And as you've touched on, the slider and the changeup look awesome. They were great again here for Reese Olson. He had 16 whiffs on 100 pitches. 11 of those came on either the changeup or the slider. Still would like him to get away from that 4-seam fastball. It had an average exit velocity over 100 miles per hour against his fastball in the start. So that is a pitch that gets clobbered. I think we'll still get some inconsistencies. There's definitely a pitcher there, and there's talent, but I still think Reese Olson is trying to figure out how to make all the pieces work together, and that's why we saw some of those struggles earlier on in June. He is up to 64% rostered. Lots of people picking him up for that 2-start week. Some of the most added starting pitchers on CBS, just because they were coming from some so low, like Tobias Myers, DJ Hers, Alec Marsh. Those names were pretty lowly rostered before this. I'm assuming you would take Reese Olson over any of those three, right?
Name them again.
Myers, Hers, and Alec Marsh.
Yeah, I would take him over all three of them. Yeah.
And then the other three most added starting pitchers, Jake Irvin, Hunter Brown, Taj Bradley. I think I would take all three of those still over Olson.
Yeah, definitely Taj Bradley. Yeah, Hunter Brown with the way he's picked things up in his last few starts, the adjustment he made, fading the fastballs, been getting a ton more whiffs. And the third one was Jake Irvin. Yeah, I think Reese Olson is more talented than Jake Irvin, and I've had a more positive tone with Jake Irvin the past couple weeks, but I do think if the league conditions, if the hitting and pitching conditions change this summer, I do worry if Jake Irvin could fall off for fantasy. I don't think he's as obvious of a case as like Javier Assad, but it's possible. When Reese Olson, he might just have the talent to be a must roster player the rest of the way. So that's a closer call. They both had 2 starts this week. I kind of just want to wait and see how this week goes. Jake Irvin had the bad matchups. Reese Olson had the better matchups. And if Reese Olson ends up looking way better than Jake Irvin this week, then I'll be I'll probably prefer Reese Olson at that point.
All right. Want to give an, oh my goodness gracious, honorable mention to Kyle Schwarber. Find somebody who loves you the way Schwarber loves crushing baseballs in June, because this guy, whenever that calendar flips, doesn't matter the year, he crushes in June. Kyle Schwarber, 2 for 3 with 2 walks, a double dong, 4 RBI on Monday, and his career OPS in June entering this game was 932, by far the best of any month. And his last 7 games, he's hitting 408, 5 home runs since the start of May. So this is going back quite some time. Kyle Schwarber's hitting 295. So that's a really nice development there. 8 homers, 3 steals. The overall numbers look awesome. I think he's probably a top 12 outfielder both formats moving forward.
Yeah, you mentioned since the calendar flipped to June, he had a good May too. Like you said, 295 since the beginning of the month. His batting average for the season is up to 253. And this is for a guy who the past 2 seasons hit 207. And he was, earlier in his career, back with the Cubs and the Nationals, he was more like a 250 hitter. What changed when he joined the Phillies is that he really started selling out for home runs, did Kyle Schwarber. And, the 46 and 47, he set a career high each of his first 2 years with the Phillies, but he was putting the ball in the air so much that it made it impossible for him to have even a respectable batting average. You look at the fly ball rate this year, it's down. He's hitting more line drives, and the overall stat line is looking better. I guess the OPS is, well, no, the OPS just climbed with this game. Okay, so 830 OPS. It was 822 the previous 2 years. So yeah, the overall stat line I can say looks better for Kyle Schwarber. And if he's not going to be that liability in batting average, it makes him less of an extreme player and less difficult to fit in a 5x5 context. So I think it's a change for the better. He's still hitting a ton of home runs. Maybe he won't get to 45 this year, but with power down across the league, I think you'll take it. I think you'll take the extra 50 points of batting average. Even if it ends up 40 points of batting average, I think you'll take it. Yeah,
and I was out on Schwarber entering this season in category leagues because I just don't like to take players that are going to hit around or below 200, and that was what we saw from Schwarber the past couple of years. So, much better development for his category league value. He's always great in points leagues because he walks, obviously, but a very nice season so far for Kyle Schwarber. Oh my goodness gracious, lineup of the night. The power of Grimace lives on. Make it 6 in a row for the New York Mets. They put up 14 runs on 22 hits. Francisco Lindor has turned his season around, 4 for 4 with a double, 3 runs, 2 RBI for him. Brandon Nimmo, 3 for 4 with his 8th home run, 4 RBI. The expected stats still say that he's been pretty unlucky so far this season. Mark Vientos, 3 for 5 with a double, 2 runs scored. He had 2 hard hit balls over 109 miles per hour. Francisco Alvarez, 3 for 5 with 2 RBI, his first multi-hit game since returning from the IL. Anything you'd like to add on these names, Scott? It kind of feels like Brendan Nimmo. I don't know if he's a buy low. He's like a buy medium. I don't know. He's just a buy. I think Brendan Nimmo is a totally fine player to try and acquire right now if you wanted to.
Well, his actual numbers are still lagging so much behind his expected numbers that I think you could call him a buy low. He's obviously getting hot. Last 4 games, 10 for 17. And it's a long time coming because, as good as he was last year, his 274 XBA, his 468 X slug, both better than last year. And yet the batting average has been lagging all season, as is true for a lot of players. But I think that's changing, and I think Brandon Nimmo is going to be a prime beneficiary here. Let's see. Francisco Lindor, obviously, he's the most rostered, the most highly regarded of these players. But I do think it's worth pointing out for him, sort of like Nimmo, the expected numbers are much better than his actual numbers. So his batting average with his 4 for 4 game is up to 242 now. He has a 280 XBA.
Wow.
And that's not normal for Francisco Lindor. The past 3 years, it was like 254, 255. It's 280 this year. I don't think anybody's really complaining about what Lindor is doing for them anymore, but my point is there may be even better to come. As for Francisco Alvarez, not Lindor. Hey, 2 Franciscos in the Mets lineup. Who knew? Francisco Alvarez. So he had been 2 for 14 since coming off the IL. 2 strikeouts. And no strikeouts in this game. So he's been making contact. He made plenty of hard contact in this game. 2 balls hit over 103 miles per hour. So he may be on the verge of breaking through, getting comfortable and doing a lot of damage at the catcher position. And finally, Mark Vientos, strikeout rate's still down to 21%. I remain encouraged. As hard as he's hitting the ball while keeping that strikeout rate down, he could make a name for himself in fantasy at third base, which has been pretty scarce in waiver wire pickups recently. Pretty light. Yeah.
In 15 games since Brett Beatty got sent down, Mark Vientos is batting .308 with 2 homers, 10 RBI, and an .835 OPS. Who did the Mets do all this damage against? John Gray. 3 innings, 11 hits, 9 earned runs, 2 homers allowed, 10 hard hits allowed, negative 15 fantasy points on CBS. Even with this start, he has a respectable 3.31 ERA and a 1.32 WHIP. He's 84% rostered. Scott, how do you feel about the spite drop? Someone has this in your lineup. Do you just drop him for anyone because you're so frustrated by it?
No, I don't believe in the spite drop. You may want to drop John Gray for like legitimate reasons. He has 3 inning starts basically since coming off the IL. Looked fine in the first 2, but this one was terrible. And in shallower leagues especially, you drop him after a start like this, nobody's picking him up. I'm kind of surprised he's 84% rostered. And I recommended starting him this week, so that's bad on me. And I don't really know what went wrong. It didn't look like the recap of the game was up on the Rangers site yet, so I couldn't seek out quotes. But in terms of pitch selection, pitch velocity, pitch movement, it all seemed normal. John Gray was looking really good before he went on the IL. So if it is a drop situation, it's because you can get away with dropping him for whatever else is interesting out there versus we're just done with John Gray. We're never going to pay attention to him again. I think there may be something here, but we got to see we got to see him bounce back from this start, and we have to see him work a little deeper into games than he has been.
Would you drop him for Reese Olson?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to everybody for watching live. We appreciate you being here. Make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. That's youtube.com/fantasybaseball today. And if you enjoyed the audio podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple and Spotify. We really do appreciate it. Let's take our first break, and when we return, we'll hit the news and notes right after this.
It's the NWSL on CBS Sports Network.
Keep your eyes on me.
Welcome back in the news and notes. Dave Roberts said the expectation is that Mookie Betts will be sidelined 6 to 8 weeks. That brings us to early mid-August as a potential return for Mookie Betts. Miguel Vargas was recalled, but not in the lineup Monday. Sounds like Miguel Rojas is going to get most of the starts at shortstop. Shohei Ohtani moved up to leadoff, followed by Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, and Teoscar Hernandez. They had a nice offensive game. I believe 9 runs scored in Coors Field. Obviously, great spot for this lineup to hit. Garrett Cole will officially make his season debut this Wednesday against the Orioles in 3 rehab starts. He allowed 1 earned run over 12 1/3 innings, striking out 19 while walking none. The Yankees have not played yet this week, Scott, so I think in most leagues you could still decide if you want to start Garrett Cole. Just getting him back in there. It's a really tough lineup, Baltimore.
Oh, yeah. I'm putting him in there. I have him in 2 leagues. One is fairly deep. One is fairly shallow. And I saw fit to activate him in both.
All right. Kyle Tucker may require a rehab assignment if he isn't able to begin running within the next few days. He's on the IL with a shin contusion. The MRI on Corbin Carroll's left side revealed no significant damage. He'll rejoin the D-backs lineup Tuesday against the Nationals. Trey Turner returned to the Phillies lineup, was in there batting second. He finished 2 for 5 with a run scored his first game back. Jacob deGrom threw a 15-pitch bullpen session Monday, all of which were fastballs. It was the first time he's thrown off a mound since he underwent Tommy John surgery last June. If all goes well, could be back sometime in August. Again, that's Jacob deGrom. William Contreras did not start Monday's game, but was available to pinch hit or enter the game defensively. He took a shot to the head on a play at the plate Sunday, and manager Pat Murphy said Contreras is going to be fine. For what it's worth, he did not enter the game. Bo Bichette has missed 3 straight with a right calf injury. He was also available off the bench. Also did not enter the game on Monday with the Blue Jays. Anthony Rizzo suffered a fracture to the radial neck of his right arm and could miss 4 to 6 weeks. My guess is DJ LeMahieu will slide over to first base with Oswaldo Cabrera at third. The Yankees have some hitting prospects in the minors. I don't think that they're going to push any of them. It's, Jason Dominguez doesn't make sense, and he just went on the IL. They have a few catchers that are crushing it down there. Ben Rice, Augustine Ramirez, but I don't know if they want to just call those guys up and throw them right at first base, right, Scott? I don't think it would make sense to the Yankees.
I think they'd more likely use them as trade bait to get an actual first or third baseman. And yeah, I think that's what's going to end up happening. I don't know if they could pull something like that off in mid-June. They might have to wait another month. But regardless of Rizzo's health, I think that's a likely scenario given the state the Yankees are in right now, competition-wise.
Mm-hmm. I heard some whispers over the weekend, maybe even before the weekend, before this winning streak started for the Mets, Pete Alonso to the Yankees, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that's realistically going to happen. Never say never, but I don't think so. Yimi Garcia was placed on the IL due to right elbow ulnar neuritis, and Chad Green will operate as the team's closer with both Garcia and Jordan Romano still out. Romano did throw from 90 to 120 feet on Monday, and if his arm responds well, he'll throw off a mound on Wednesday. He's been on the IL since June 1st with right elbow inflammation. TJ Friedl, man, this guy just cannot stay healthy this year. Not necessarily by his own doing, but left Monday with a hamstring injury. And after the game, manager David Bell said Friedel's hammy was, quote, just tight. He's day-to-day. Blake Snell is scheduled to throw a 3-inning simulated game on Tuesday. Yu Darvish will make a rehab start Wednesday at high A. He's on the IL with a left groin strain. Joe Musgrove is expected to play catch Wednesday or Thursday, which will mark the first time he's thrown since he went on the IL June 1st with a bone spur in his right elbow. David Hamilton left Monday's game due to left side discomfort. Sucks because it's the first game. He gets locked into the weekly lineups and obviously was hitting really well for the Boston Red Sox. The Braves placed Hurston Waldrop on the IL Monday with right elbow inflammation. He'll be shut down from throwing for the next week. Christian Encarnacion.
Now, it's funny the way this Waldrop thing was reported, because the way it was presented was the Braves told him he was being demoted. Then he went to the trainer's room and said his elbow wasn't feeling, it was feeling worse than it should after his start. So they put him on the IL instead of sending him down, which that's probably not exactly how it went down. That just seems kind of dastardly on Waldrop's part. But hey, he gets to keep making a major league salary now. So it's not altogether bad news for him.
Yeah, good on him. I mean, I will never blame the players for wanting to get their money. Not that that's exactly what's happening here, but
I mean, I don't want to accuse the guy of fraud or anything. I'm sure there are disincentives for that, but it's just that's the way the beat reporters presented it. And they weren't doing it in like an accusatory way, but it was just funny, the timeline of events there.
Christian Encarnacion Strand was transferred to the 60-day IL. He's been out since May 8th with a right ulnar styloid fracture. It's something going on with his wrist, and it's still possible he undergoes season-ending surgery. Jose Soriano was scratched from his start Monday due to lower abdominal pain. Zach Plesac started in his place. Ryan Weathers is asymptomatic but has yet to resume a throwing program. He's on the IL with a left index finger strain. The Phillies optioned Johan Rojas back to AAA. Brandon Marsh started in center with David Dahl in left field on Monday. And Yariel Rodriguez could start Friday for the Blue Jays on his 6-start rehab assignment. He has a 1.93 ERA, a 1.50 whip, lots of strikeouts, also lots of walks. We'll see what happens with Yariel Rodriguez. A few prospect updates. D-back shortstop prospect Jordan Lawler is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks after being diagnosed with a grade 1 left hamstring strain. Brutal luck, has missed most of the season with a thumb injury before this. I believe he played like 10 games and then obviously has this hamstring pop-up, so that sucks. And the Nationals promoted outfield prospect Dylan Cruz from AA to AAA. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's one of those names called up in late August, early September, get a taste, and then maybe up on opening day in 2025.
Yeah, I've been a little unimpressed with just looking at the numbers. Dylan Cruz.
I was a little surprised they promoted him too, right?
It didn't seem like he had really mastered AA to me. I'll be anxious to see what the exit velocity readings look like, because I don't have access to that information for players at AA, but I do for players at AAA. So I think that'll tell us a lot more about Dylan Cruz.
Let's get into the waiver wire pitchers from Monday. We already spoke about Reese Olson. The other name that pitched pretty well, Braxton Garrett, turned in a quality start against the Cardinals. 6 innings, 1 run, had 6 strikeouts, 11 whiffs on 93 pitches in this one. He did tweak the pitch mix a little bit. He led with the slider. It was his most used pitch. He also used his 4-seam fastball more in this start, and both are good ideas. The slider and fastball both have been pretty good for Braxton Garrett. Previous 2 starts before this one were pretty rough, but overall, the underlying numbers still look solid for Braxton Garrett. He's 51% rostered. I assume you prefer Reese Olson over Garrett, right?
I do. If Garrett's slider returns to its former effectiveness, then I think it'll be a closer call. But, Olson's got the 2 pitches with the 40% whiff rate, and Braxton Garrett had 1 last year, that slider. So, yeah, I think the ultimate ceiling is higher for Olson. I'm just trying to see how the movement on the slider in this start compared to last year. But I'm not going to be able to interpret this quickly enough. So you can keep going.
Okay. A couple names in deeper leagues. David Peterson turned in a quality start at the Rangers. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. He had 11 whiffs on 100 pitches. He also allowed a lot of hard contact, 95 mile per hour average exit velocity against David Peterson in this start. And one of the Reds pitching prospects, Carson Spears, made his first start of the season. He had been with the team pitching in relief, but got a start here on Monday against the Pirates. It was kind of a mixed outing. 6 innings, 4 runs allowed, 5 strikeouts, had 12 whiffs on 104 pitches, and threw 5 different pitches between 13 and 30% usage. So kind of has that kitchen sink approach. He led with the sweeper, was his most used pitch. He's 26 years old. Numbers in the minors actually look pretty good the past couple of years, Scott, but deeper leagues, anything here with David Peterson and Carson Spears of the Reds?
Probably not. I don't think there's a ton of upside for either. But in a year like this, when not so talented pitchers have been making a fantasy impact, they're at least worth keeping an eye on.
All right, let's slide over to the waiver wire hitters from Monday. And Cedar Rafaela has been pretty good over the past month. 2 for 3 with a walk and his 8th home run. 107.9 exit velocity, 420 feet. So pretty impressive shot here from Rafaela. Last 26 games, batting .326 with 4 homers, 17 runs, 17 RBI, and 4 steals. So again, performing pretty well the past month. Mason Wynn, 2 for 6 with his 4th home run, 2 runs, 2 RBI. Last 30 games for him, .319 batting average, 4 homers, 2 steals, .842 OPS. Scott, if you can only add one, would it be Rafaela or Mason Wynn? Or neither? Maybe you just don't like either one. I don't know.
I think Rafaela has more upside. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Mason Wynn is more likely to remain usable in those deeper leagues all season, but I think Rafaela has the better chance of making the bigger impact. He's theoretically going to hit for more power while still providing that speed. Maybe potentially even more speed than Mason Wynn, more stolen bases. And that timeline you gave about coincides, I think, with that mechanical adjustment he made, having his hands lower so that he could catch up to fastballs better. So it may be paying off for Rafaela. That may explain why the production has improved so much here recently.
Would you take either one over Nick Gonzalez or Joey Ortiz? Those feel like the top middle infielders we've been hyping up.
Right. No, I think Ortiz and Gonzalez both are in a different category.
Would you drop Davis Schneider for either one? Because he has kind of slowed down. He hit his 9th home run here on Monday, but previous 10 games before this, he was 3 for 28. That's a 107 batting average. He's down to 48% rostered, so it's not like he's universally rostered or anything, but would you drop Schneider for either Wynn or Rafaela?
I think you could justify it if it's a league where OBP, where walks, where those don't count, which is obviously true in a standard roto league. I think if the Blue Jays just stuck with Davis Schneider, they'd be pretty happy with the results. But he does seem like the sort of guy that's going to run hot and cold, given that he hits so many fly balls, and obviously when those aren't sailing over the fence, they're outs, and that can lead to some rough patches. What I'm worried about with him is less that he has cooled off than that he's started only 5 of the last 8 games for the Blue Jays. So if he's not going to be an everyday player for them anymore, it's going to be hard for him to make a fantasy impact, obviously. Been faked out by playing time developments over a short span like that before. I'm trying to think of who the player was recently. Jackson Merrill. And then he caught fire and is playing every day again. So maybe the same thing will happen with Davis Schneider. I did cut him in one league. Don't know if I should have. But I think he's good. I just hope the Blue Jays stick with him.
Mm-hmm. One name I think is under-rostered, and I know Scott won't agree because he hates Zach Neto. I don't know why he hates Zach Neto, but he does. And Zach Neto just keeps on doing things. 1 for 3 with his 10th home run. He is on pace for 2020 this season. Just quietly, 250, 2020. It's a pretty good player. Looked into some of the underlying metrics. Both his barrel rate and expected slug are top 11 among qualified shortstops. He's 38% rostered. The problem with Neto is that shortstop has been a really, really good position this season. And we spoke about Rafaela. We spoke about Mason Wynn. I would take both of those guys over Zach Neto, but a couple of names that are rostered.
Well, it sounds like you hate Zach Neto too then.
No, I
You're
don't.
taking Rafaela over him? Come on, man.
I actually love him. But
Rafaela on a 2020 pace?
it's probably similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rafaela has, I don't know, I didn't write down. Yeah, the overall numbers, 8 home runs, 9 steals. It's actually, yeah, they're very similar. I think the upside's a little bit higher for Rafaela.
Okay.
A couple names that are rostered in more leagues than Zach Neto, like Abraham Toro, I would drop for him. In a categories league, Davis Schneider, I would drop for Zach Neto. Jeff McNeil, still 49% rostered. I have no idea why. Like, I don't know. Just names that are slightly more rostered, I would drop any of those for Zach Neto.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we're not so far apart on Zach Neto after all.
What about Jonathan India, 53%? Did you drop him for Zach Neto?
Not in a points league.
Yeah.
In a categories league, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. I kind of expect Jonathan India to pick things up this summer. He's getting the playing time. It's more assured now since it's obviously Matt McClain's not going to be back for weeks and weeks still. And it sounds like Christian Encarnacion Strand, he might not be back at all since they found ligament damage and may need to do surgery. So I think India's spot is pretty secure. Obviously a favorable park for power. Power picks up in the summer as it always does. India could be a big beneficiary. So I'm a little reluctant to give him up.
2 names that I will quickly mention as part of the waiver wire. I don't think you need to add Michael Busch yet, but he is showing some signs recently of coming back around. Last 9 games, hitting .370 with 1 home run, tons of line drives and hard contact. Still 54% rostered. Again, I think we need to see more, but things might be turning around for Michael Busch. And
the playing time has been less consistent for him too, but I suspect that'll change if he picks it up. By the way, he's made 3 starts at second base over the past week plus. Michael Busch has. So he's probably going to pick up eligibility there in addition to first base, in addition to the third base eligibility he already had. And obviously that'll make him more usable. But I agree. It's not time to rush out and pick him up again just yet.
Yeah, in the sense that he is a rookie, and we kind of said something similar about Jackson Merrill. Michael Busch has an 800 OPS. That's really impressive for a rookie. So I don't want to downplay that, but it's like he had that awesome first month and then he really slowed down. So it's been up and down, but overall I think a pretty successful rookie season so far for Michael Busch. And one name in deeper leagues, Miguel Rojas. First game filling in for Mookie Betts. It was a good one, 3 for 5 with a double, an RBI, 2 runs scored. He's only 5% rostered, but in deeper leagues, triple eligible, second, third shortstop. If you want some cheap exposure to the Dodgers lineup, you can get it in Miguel Rojas. Let's take our final break, and when we return, who's hot and who's not? Starting pitcher edition. We'll do that right after this.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
All right, I've got a quick story before we get into who's hot and who's not. Way back when I was in middle school, there was this kid that would start off every day by talking over the loudspeaker to the entire school. And he would read off what's hot and what's not. What was trending, what's not trending, what's falling out of trendiness. And I always thought that would make sense as a segment on this show. So here we are.
Where's that kid now?
I don't know. I don't think we were ever friends on like Facebook or I don't know.
I had a role in the morning announcements my senior year of high school.
Okay.
I was Mr. History, and I'd give a take on in this day in history, this happened. And I'd try and make it funny. You know, people were amused. They were sufficiently amused.
There you go.
That was my first broadcasting role.
Love it. Yeah. So I always thought about that. I was always, it was fun to listen to what's hot and what's not. And here we are, who's hot and who's not. Starting pitcher edition. We've got to talk about Paul Skeens. Obviously, he's been pretty hot since getting called up. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. He had 18 whiffs on 96 pitches against the Reds. And this is now 2 starts in a row where he's mixed in his curveball a little bit more. And so far, it's looked like a pretty damn good pitch. In 7 starts, Skeens has a 2.29 ERA and a .99 whip. Sonny Gray also turned in a great start at the Marlins, 7 2/3, 2 runs allowed, had 4 strikeouts in this one, and that's back-to-back quality starts of at least 7 innings for Sonny Gray. And Christopher Sanchez has been good for quite some time now. 7 innings, 2 runs, 1 of those earned, 5 strikeouts to 1 walk. He actually faded his changeup a bit in this start, which is weird because that's clearly his best pitch, and he still had a really good outing. I think he's very clearly traded off some strikeouts, Scott, for throwing strikes and getting ground balls. And, while we're not getting strikeouts, we're still getting pretty good ratios with really good run support behind him there with the Phillies offense. So anything you'd like to add on the pitchers who are hot? Christopher Sanchez, Sonny Gray, and Paul Skeens.
Yeah, some weird pitch selection here for a few of these guys. Paul Skeens throwing a bunch of curveballs out of nowhere. It hasn't been any less effective than his slider. I mean, his slider's kind of been a letdown if you look at the whiff rate on it and everything. It was supposed to be his best swing and miss pitch in this splinker. You wrote sprinkler here in the notes, but they call it splinker. Is that an autocorrect?
No, it's an autocorrect. Every single time I write splinker, it autocorrects to sprinkler, and it's so annoying.
What gets me with the autocorrect is when you write a legitimate word and it changes it to something else. And it's like a fairly common, I wish I could think of an example, like were and we're. Like it'll change one to the other all the time. And I'm like, what are you doing? People use this word all the time. Anyway.
Why do we not have splinker in the dictionary yet? Come on.
Splinker, you got to get it in there for Paul Skeens. I guess the one I want to focus on most here is Christopher Sanchez, because he was coming off a bad start, and it was the start. It happened to be the start where his velocity dropped back down again. So remember, there was a spike in velocity at the start of the year, and he struggled with control. Then there was another spike in velocity, and he became this control artist again, had a stretch of 4 starts where he walked 3 batters combined. And then the velocity dropped back down to the initial elevated point it was early in the season, and he had a bad start and walked, I think, 2 in 4 innings. The velocity stayed there. So again, it was the initial spike is where the velocity was in this start, but he went back to having good control and got a good result. So I don't know if he sacrificed strikeouts by throwing more sinkers than changeups, if there was kind of a trade-off there. Strikes versus strikeouts. I don't know. He's been a tough one to figure out, has Christopher Sanchez, but I think he's worth having and using because he's good enough, often enough, with one of the best offenses in baseball backing him, that he's worthwhile. I just wish we had a better handle on who Christopher Sanchez was.
Those 3 pitchers were the ones that were hot on Monday. The one who is not. Yusei Kikuchi has slowed down. 4 innings, 5 runs allowed, 4 homers allowed. That actually ties a career high. Still had 7 strikeouts, had 15 whiffs on 79 pitches. I believe they did this on his birthday too, which is pretty messed up, man. How are you going to crush Yusei Kikuchi on his birthday? It's not nice. But lots of hard contact in this one. I guess that's going to happen when you give up 4 home runs. And he has allowed 5 earned runs in 3 of his last 5 starts. During that span, it's a 6.17 ERA. It's a 1.59 whip. Lots of hard contact, lots of homers. Scott, are you panicking? Are you hitting the panic button on Yusei Kikuchi?
Panic is a little strong. I think he's on the fringier side. I'm not saying he needs to be dropped for Reese Olson, but I never really bought into the idea that Yusei Kikuchi was this must-start, big-time strikeout artist. I know he had a good stretch last year, I think in the second half, right, where K per 9 rate was pretty impressive. But I think he's pretty mid. He's mid. And he's showing it now.
I think he's better than mid because he does get whiffs. I just think when things
What
go
does mid
wrong,
mean?
exactly what you think it means. It's like,
Okay. Maybe
average,
not.
I guess. Mid.
Yeah.
I think there's more of a negative connotation with mid. Like if you call someone mid, that's not nice. You don't want to call somebody average, right? It's like,
I'm just going on contextual clues here. I've never looked it up.
yeah. I think Kikuchi's a little bit better than mid. I just think when things go wrong for him, they tend to go really wrong, and we're kind of seeing some of that right now. But I have him ranked closer around SP 40. He probably should be closer to like SP 60 in the rankings.
60's mid.
Yeah, I think that's.
I only care about the top 120, so 60 is.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. Like, is 60 in the good glob?
I don't know.
Our friend Ellen Adair suggested cornucopia as the alternative to good glob. Doesn't roll off the tongue.
No,
I see where she's coming from, but
we got someone sent in an email about what to name the good glob.
the good glob.
Where did it go? I can't find it right now. And obviously we're live. I think they said the glob should be the good glob and the blob should be the bad glob. So,
well, some people mistake glob for blob as it is. I think that would be too confusing.
Yeah.
So I reject that also. These are fine ideas. I appreciate the suggestions.
Yeah.
I don't want to discourage suggestions, but I am, going to reject most of them.
I might save this. I'm going to save this thought where we can maybe elaborate more on our rankings episode later this week. But I've kind of backed off a little bit outside of the top 30 or 35 starting pitchers. When I've been ranking 40 to 60 lately, I have not felt as good about it. And I can't really exactly put my finger on it, but
I'll pay closer attention tomorrow when I'm doing that. But it makes sense. Particularly if offense is going to pick up.
Right.
There's going to be a weeding out process for those pitchers. And I think we've continued to move Garrett Crochet up. He's like top 25 now, at least for me.
Yeah.
And Jack Flaherty and Luis Heel, while others have fallen off a little bit, like Cutter Crawford. Mm-hmm. And you said Kikuchi. Yeah.
No, I think that makes total sense. 3 hitters who are picking things back up. Elly De La Cruz, 3 for 4 with his 37th stolen base. And last 13 games, he's batting .286 with 3 homers and 5 steals, just a 21% strikeout rate during that span. Again, this is kind of just, I think this is who Elly De La Cruz is. We're going to get high highs. We're going to get low lows. At the end of the season, I think the numbers are probably going to look really awesome for him. But looks like he's picking things back up. Same thing for Tyler O'Neill, 2 for 4 with a double dong. He added a walk, and 8 games since returning from the IL. He's batting .367 with 3 homers and an 11-12 OPS. And Ian Happ has turned his season around, 2 for 3 with his 8th home run, 3 RBI, last 23 games, batting .276 with 6 homers, 22 RBI, 5 steals. The 22 RBI, 5th most in baseball since May 22nd. Anything that stands out for Ian Happ, Tyler O'Neill, and Elly De La Cruz?
So Ian Happ was a sleeper hitter for this week. Very good numbers at home relative to the road, and had another good game at home here. I don't know. I don't think that trend holds from last year, so I don't know how much we want to depend on it with Ian Happ, but it has been surprisingly predictive this year because he was ice cold before this. They return home, and look what happens. He has a big game right away. This was their 4th game back home, but they were on a road trip for a lot of that cold stretch.
Okay. Anything else on the other 2, or good to move on?
I mean, other than pointing out Tyler O'Neill's been hot since his latest bout with, what was it, knee inflammation?
Yeah, I think he's been dealing with that off and on, so it's
Well, since his
problem.
latest return. I mean, I assume you already gave the numbers. I don't actually listen when you're talking, as you well know.
I know, Scott. I know. I don't know what I did.
He's been hot. He's still striking out a lot, but he's been hot. So don't abandon him so quickly, I guess.
All right, some leftovers. The pitchers. First up, Nick Pivetta turned in a quality start at the Blue Jays. 7 innings, 3 runs, 4 strikeouts, allowed 2 home runs in this. I can't figure out Nick Pivetta. I moved him way up the rankings. You look at his game log. It's like some starts are really good, some starts are bad. This one was like kind of in the middle. Maybe you have a better feel, Scott. And Max Fried, he was just okay against the Tigers. 5 1/3, 1 run, 6 strikeouts to 3 walks. Pretty wild in this start. 3 walks for Fried. Only threw 58% of his pitches for strikes. I think that explains the this outcome that we wound up with. But anything on Fried and Pivetta?
I mean, I hoped for better for both of them, given that the matchups were good. I would say it's encouraging that Pivetta went back to walking 1 in 7 innings after last start. Remember, he had 4 walks. And that's been a key to his turnaround. Is he was a pitcher who long struggled with control, got better with his move to the bullpen last year, has been good at limiting walks all season, apart from that one start. And so it's good to see him get back on track. I don't know about the inconsistency here with the whiffs for him, because at times he looks like a total dominant bat misser, and then other times not so much. But I guess, I don't know, maybe we should just be thankful that he can still put together a quality start like this, even when he isn't missing a lot of bats. I think it's not enough of a trend yet to be to be fearful about it, though.
3 pitchers that kind of just feel like they're in no man's land right now for fantasy. Jordan Hicks, he was okay at the Cubs. 5 shutout innings, 4 hits, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. He has not completed 6 innings since April 27th. Javier Assad, solid on the other side. 5 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, only had 7 whiffs on 92 pitches. This was his first start allowing 1 earned run or less since May 15th. And as soon as I drop James Paxton in Tout Wars, a 15-team Roto League, he has his best start of the season. In Coors Field at the Rockies, 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts. He had 15 whiffs on 91 pitches, 8 on the curve, 6 on the fastball. Weird stuff happens in Coors Field. Maybe that's just the answer here. But do you feel differently, Scott? It feels like no man's land right now for Jordan Hicks, Javier Assad, and James Paxton.
Yeah, I think the only reason to care about Jordan Hicks and Javier Assad is they're RP eligible. And so when they happen to line up for 2 starts, they're pretty much always worth using in a points league. But just so many 5-inning starts with not many strikeouts. And that just, regardless of what the ERA is, it's just not adding much, especially since it's not like it comes with a great whip. It's a limited amount in one category, and I just don't have much interest in that. And then Paxton, I mean, this was legitimately a great start. I don't know, like his curveball was the most effective it's been, even though he was in the thin air where it limits the movement. Maybe he needs to have less movement on it. I don't know, but obviously need to see a lot more of this for James Paxton to believe that he's turned over a new leaf.
Some hitting leftovers. Alec Boehm continues his strong season, 3 for 5 with his 7th home run, added 3 RBI. He had that awesome April where he hit 370, OPS approaching 1100. Since May 1st, 266 batting average and OPS right around 700 for Alec Boehm. So he's come back down to earth. Obviously, the run production is still fantastic. 60 RBI. That's the 4th most in baseball. Thairo Estrada, 2 for 3 with his 9th home run, added 4 RBI. Weird season for Estrada. He's got 9 home runs. The counting stats are okay. Only 1 steal. And he's still 72nd percentile in sprint speed. So I found that a little bit weird. And Ohtani, his first game in the leadoff spot with the Dodgers, pretty good outing. 3 for 5 with 2 doubles and his 16th steal. Anything here?
So Alec Boehm, the batting average, I think the low point was 286, and now it's climbed back over 300 because he's 11 for 18 in his last 4 games. Yeah, I think that cooling off period for Alec Boehm basically brought his numbers in line to where they should be. And I think if you just look at his year-to-date stats now and take that at face value, that's basically what you should expect from Alec Boehm. He is on pace for 130 RBI. I have a hard time believing he'll get quite there, but you can understand it given his placement in a good lineup. It's just I don't know. It's hard to ask somebody who's not even on a 20 homer pace to sustain an RBI pace that high. So maybe that's the most questionable part of the stat line here for Alec Boehm, but he's going to hit for average. He's going to hit a bunch of doubles. He's going to drive in a good amount of runs. He is still the 3rd best first baseman in points leagues. I would not rank him that high personally. I suspect Josh Naylor's going to pass him, Christian Walker, Pete Alonso, Matt Olson, obviously. But he's probably going to be top 10, at very worst top 12. And that's not even to mention third base, which might be the position where you're more likely to use him anyway.
Yeah, these pace numbers for Alec Boehm are so interesting because the RBI on pace for 130, the doubles on pace for 59 doubles, like those are 2 clear outlier stats, but also on pace for just 70 runs scored and 13 homers.
Mm-hmm.
Just, how do you explain that? I mean, it's really good RBI production, but yeah.
Good lineup. Yeah.
But wouldn't you think his runs would be higher too, though?
No, because he bats. Where does he bat in the lineup? I don't actually know where he bats in the lineup. I assume he bats like 5th.
Yeah, I think maybe it's 4th. Probably 4th.
Well, he's bringing up the rear of the big bats, and he's not a high on base guy. He gets on base a decent amount because the average is high, but he doesn't walk much.
Mm-hmm.
So he's on base less than you think he is. He's got Bryson Stott and Nick Castellanos moved up in the lineup with the Real Muto injury. But, he's got the bottom of the Phillies lineup to drive him in. So I think the contrast there between the RBI and the runs makes sense.
Some bullpen updates for the Pirates. David Bednar struck out 1 for his 15th save. For the Cardinals, Ryan Helsley was unavailable. Andrew Kittredge came on in the 10th for the save. He gave up an unearned run, took his 4th blown save. The Cardinals then took the lead in the 11th. Kittredge came back out and closed out the game. He picked up his first win. For the Braves, Raisel Iglesias was unavailable. Joe Jimenez picked up his first save. For the Cubs, Hector Neris got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He gave up 3 runs, 2 of those earned, took his 4th blown save, 2nd loss. The numbers look pretty bad for Hector Neris, Scott. I just don't really know where the Cubs can go. Mark Leiter Jr. has a 4.50 ERA. His underlying numbers are much better. It's a 2.80 xFIP, and the K- walk rate is pretty good, but I just don't really see anywhere else they can go for saves right now with the Cubs.
Yeah, I'd kind of worry that they just don't go anywhere. And I don't mean stick with Hector Neris. We'd prefer them to stick with Hector Neris, but that they kind of just abandon roles for a while and let it sort itself out. That would be my concern if I had anything invested in Hector Neris. Because you're right, there's not an obvious closer in waiting here. I don't know. Maybe we'll see them acquire one. Maybe. So I know the Royals would be interested in one too.
Yep. For the Giants, Camilo Doval struck out 1 for his 13th save. And for the Angels, Carlos Estevez got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He struck out 1 for his 13th save as well. To stream or not to stream on a Tuesday. And I believe yesterday, who did we say? Alec Marsh at the Oakland A's.
Mm-hmm.
Albert Suarez at the Yankees. I don't know.
Didn't love it, but I did like him as a 2-star pitcher. But there was a second good one, right? Did it change?
Tobias Myers at the Angels isn't bad. Spencer
Maybe it was Lance Lynn at the Marlins, but
Schwellenbach versus the Tigers.
I think Alec Marsh at Oakland's the clear winner for
Yeah.
Tuesday.
If I had to choose a second, I would probably go with Lance Lynn at the Marlins. Speaking of the Marlins, on Wednesday, we have Kyle Gibson at the Marlins, so I do like that one quite a bit. And outside of that,
not great.
Don't really love anybody else. I'm interested to see what Cade Povich does at the Yankees, but I don't really want to use him there. Yeah.
No.
All right.
No. I'd rather start Albert Suarez Tuesday than anyone other than Kyle Gibson Wednesday.
All right, let's wrap up with Team Name Tuesday, and these are from Kaz. Keller Dwellers.
Sure.
Why you in such a rush, man?
I don't know, like anytime somebody uses you in a team name, it's why you. I don't know if that's always clear to the people listening. So he does cram that second name in there, but it reads fine. It's fine.
A pink stadium, a Rose Arena. I don't know what that means.
A Rose Arena.
A Rose. Oh, a pink stadium, a
pink stadium. Arena. Too clever by half.
Yeah, especially for me. Fall down, go boom. Fall down, go boom.
What's the thaw? FAW?
Is there a player we're not thinking of? Oh, I just searched on Fangraphs FAW. Didn't see anyone. But
I don't know.
I'm sure we're forgetting about something. Mi casa es su casas.
I've used that one before. Yep.
Soderstrom's Soda Stream.
Yeah.
Very good. From Tom, you bet you're lively.
Does that mean something?
You bet you're lively. Bet your livelihood? I don't know. Something like that. Maybe.
I mean, he should do lively-hood if that's what he meant. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not great. Not great, Tom.
Put the green tie on. Put the green tie on, I guess.
Tie on? Okay.
All right.
I wonder, is that a reference, like specifically a green tie, or is he just that there is a player whose last name is Green? That's all it is.
Put the green tie on. No, I don't know. Probably is, but I'm not finding anything on Google. And the last one from Tom, Midnight Moniac. She's a Keller at large.
All right, sure.
This was some kind of like 80s hair band song when I looked it up. From Sarah, Snell my Odor.
We're still doing Rugnet Odor team names, huh?
And Cease Andy Sheets.
Okay. Oh, that's kind of supposed to sound like cease and desist. Cease Sandy Sheets.
Maybe. That could work. From Russ, Lindor Truffle Shuffle.
Oh, yeah. I like food ones.
Well, I think you're going to like this next one.
It's kind of a before and after Jeopardy thing with the Lindor Truffle Shuffle, you know?
Yeah. From Nicholas, Friedel Lays.
Ooh, that's good.
That's pretty good.
That's real good.
I knew you would like that one. These last couple are from Ryan, Reaganomics.
Yeah, okay. Haven't seen many uses of Cole Reagan's name that way. Makes sense.
Woo Wyatt Webb.
Woo Wyatt Webb. You
Wyatt
think
Webb.
I'd hate that one? I kind of like it.
All right.
It's definitely outside the box.
Vinny and the Jets.
Okay, sure.
Vinny Pasquantino, huge Jet fan, apparently.
Oh, really?
Much like myself. We're in that boat together, Vinny. I'm sorry.
Bad idea.
Am I right or am I wrong?
Okay.
Gauze bandages.
Like Gaussman?
Yeah. We need some bandages for those ratios. My goodness. Merrill-Webster Dictionary.
Webster spelled with 2 B's. Sure.
There you go. We get a little Jackson Merrill, a little Logan Webb action in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we get. All right. We're going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.